Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Awaken Your Relationships. Why? Because we either work things out or we act it out, and we do it through our money, through our health, or through our relationships. And I'm the money chick, and Rita is the relationship chick. And I've just realized that, when people get their money stuff in order and they address their debt and their cash flows and they're building their wealth, all of a sudden their relationships go to shit or their health goes down. And I've realized that it's all about our emotional processing. And so much of it has to do with holding boundaries. And so that's why we're going to talk about today setting healthy boundaries because not easy. And Rita and I were just talking about how, I've been holding much healthier boundaries lately. And it's because I've released and been working on releasing my own trauma and my own emotions that were stuffed in my body for decades. Going all the way back from when I was sexually molested from a Catholic priest that was a family friend when I was 5.
And that's a good segue for what I spent a little bit of time doing this morning. And I was telling you about this before we got on. So I went to the grocery store today, and I typically have the mindset of how am I going to pay the bills? What's the next, thing I should be looking at? How do I bring my next piece of income in? Whatever. I'm
Right.
thinking about those things. And so I'm not always as generous as I'd like to be in the world,
Right. Right.
because it's like, no, no. And then if there's a good reason, like it's somebody who, in the past might have been threatening to me,
Hmm.
someone of a different culture or dressing different, or, in the past, it would have been a problem. And so we're in the parking lot, and a homeless man comes up to me, and he offers, he's like, I've got this, this thing, I'm really hungry, I just want to go into the store to eat, do you have any money you can give me? And in the past I would have avoided the whole situation, and
Mm,
this time I decided to be generous, you
right.
know and even though I wanted to hold on to the $100 I just took out of Jewel,
Right. Exactly.
520s just feels good, it feels exciting. I took a 20 and I gave it to the guy. And I said, no, keep it, the thing he was going to do. And I got in the car and I started to cry
Mm.
because I realized that I was saying to myself right before I gave him the 20, that what made the decision for me was I said, I have more than enough to give to others.
Yeah. Right.
And even
But
though I'm
sometimes,
super
could I say
generous,
from a financial standpoint,
yeah,
often our wiring, because you think of all your commitments and your debts to pay and blah, 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 we don't think that we have the money to do it. But I tell you, it only takes $1, $1 to shift your financial energy. Like, I just gave the recommendation to a friend this morning. They want $7 million for 7 buckets to live the life that they want to live. And I realized, I was like, oh, you need to set up 7 savings accounts for what all 7 of those mean to you. And you need $1 per paycheck because he can handle $7 a paycheck to open up the energy lines for those things to start coming. Because it's like we have to shift our energy and change our behaviors so that things can start rolling in. That's what we don't realize. So this
and
is
I
exactly what
did
you're talking
that.
about.
Right.
Right.
And I did
Exactly.
not only in the parking lot, but I started it last week. There was a shift in my thinking. And the last time we talked, which was last year sometime, I was talking about a program that was going to start in January, and I took a bag and I filled it with 40 quarters, and I was, a
Right.
couple other things, and I'm wandering around with it and, blessing it and doing ritual with it and everything, and I still had it. I didn't get the 40 women in the program. Well, because it
Mhm.
wasn't the right program. It wasn't totally in
Right.
a,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I realized it was like, okay, so you have to give first, and it can just be, but it has to be from the business account. It can't be me borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. And
Right.
so I took these quarters and I thought, okay, what's the best way to energetically move this energy? So I took them out back, and there's a couple different parking lots behind a diner and behind, a little mall, and they do car shows there. And I took this bag of quarters And randomly or intuitively, I went to different parts of all these parking lots and I left like 5 quarters.
Mm,
Sometimes in a pattern, sometimes looking as if they might have fallen out of somebody's pocket.
right.
And then I got the brilliant idea that I wanted people to like me. I wanted good juju. And
Mm.
so I went out front and I put, like 5 quarters in front of my neighbor's business, randomly by a bush, so people walking down the sidewalk could see it,
Yeah.
and be like, oh my God, 5 quarters. It looks like it just came out of somebody's pocket. And then one around mine and one around my other neighbor. And then I started paying people. I was like, okay, if I'm going to put $99 of this on the credit card, but $1 I'm going to have coming out of my business account. And I started to think in that direction, and this breakthrough, this mini breakthrough this morning with this guy in the parking lot, made me realize that I'm the one who has to change around money. And when I change around money, then money changes around me because now I relate to it differently. I'm more mature about it.
And those are boundaries, right? And so it's no different than like me in relationships. When I change in relationship, then the relationship I have then changes. It's the same thing, and it's all boundary holding. And it's about you allowing yourself to see what your truth is, what your authenticity is, and being that no matter what, and holding the boundaries that really get you to where it is that you want to be. And like relationship wise, if I sit there and um continue to operate in the world the same way that I always have, well then I'm going to get what I've always got. And that's why the statistics out there for divorce wind up to be, you know if you're divorced once, then there's 50% chance you're going to get divorced the second time. And then if you're married 3 times, there's like a 90% chance that you're going to get divorced. And it's like, you are the one that needs to shift, because then the world will respond and mirror different things back to you because you're showing up differently, whether it's financially or in relationship. And that's so hard sometimes, because often what our backgrounds show us, that it's like, well, but the other person, like I could point out a lot of things of past relationships that, well, the other person did bop, 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 bop. And I was like, and trust me, I did that, right? Going, it's not me, it's the other person. But now that, if you take a step back and go, oh, if I'm holding healthy boundaries and saying, yeah, it's really uncomfortable, super uncomfortable to say, I'm not okay with that, and hold that boundary. And when I did this last week with somebody, oh my gosh, I felt like I was going to throw up. I literally, but what was interesting, because again, it's tied to our physiology as well, right above my belly button, right above my solar plexus. If I don't hold a boundary, I'm so aware now of my physical body. Literally, that part of my stomach pops out like 2 to 3 inches, because I'm giving my power away. That's your solar plexus. It's your third chakra, and you're giving your power away. So my physiology literally, and that is exactly where my spine actually arches forward as well. Like my whole physiology is starting to point out right at my solar plexus. And when I held the boundary last week, my stomach went completely flat. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is what a flat stomach feels like.
I've been doing body work for like 14 years. And so I know the differences that happen when someone's able to let go of
Mm.
something in their past and how their whole body changes and they look younger.
Yep.
They glow.
I've had so many people tell me that since I got divorced. So they're going, what are you doing? You look like you're 10 years younger. I'm like, I got rid of a husband.
Yeah. You got all that weight
No,
off
it
of
had
you.
nothing to do with him. It had to do with the fact that I was holding boundaries for what was true for me that I didn't do for 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's really what it boiled down to. Like, maybe it would have been different if I would have been more true to who I was in my relationship 12 years ago, because then it could have changed and morphed together. And And it didn't. And whatever, went down the journey that I
Well,
went down.
the problem is the stronger we are, the longer we wait to get help. Because we can do it ourselves.
That's so
We've
true.
always done it ourselves, and it's a safe place. Oh, so I wanted to finish with this story. So after the parking lot, I came back and I was doing some meditation and ritual and ceremony, and I've been feeling off all day. And I realized that I didn't I don't give or receive help as often, as I'd like, because no one was there for me when I was devastated and laying on the ground. And it meant that I had to protect myself from then on. Because if you ask for help from someone, it leaves you vulnerable.
Mm,
And if you're vulnerable, there's a lot of people who take advantage of that.
correct.
And so as children, we come up with the idea that because we're vulnerable, we can't trust people. And we don't realize that we grew up and we have the ability to protect ourselves. We can trust who we want to trust, who's worthy of trust for us, who we like, and we don't have to trust the people that we don't like.
Right.
And that was a big insight that came through this, is that I can ask for help. And it's not that I even have to ask for help. It's that I'm not afraid of it now. I'm not afraid to ask for help. And clearing that fear out of the way means that you can communicate differently and you can ask for help from the right people. I was thinking about Mr. Rogers this morning, and he made such an impact because he was so attuned to children's mental and emotional health. He was just a genius, and what an advocate. And one of the things that he taught children was, in any bad situation, look for the helpers, because there's always people who are helpers. And it allows you to recognize that there will be people who can help you, maybe not the ones who are with you, but there are people, and look for them and they will help you.
That makes sense to me.
So that was beautiful this morning.
Yeah. And you know what? Allowing and accepting are two big things I want people to hear, because allow yourself to be where you're at and don't beat yourself up. Right? We certainly could, but why? And accept that you've created the life that you have right now up to this point, because you are a creator. And accepting the fact that you are a participant in everything that's occurred in your world. There's a grieving process sometimes that we have to go through when we finally stop being reactive to everybody and defensive, and just take in going, okay, I've created this. I'm accepting that. And now I want it to change. And that's where a big part of that comes, in holding the boundaries and saying, okay. And sometimes you're good at them, and sometimes you're going to fall and get a nosebleed, but but that's okay too. That's certainly okay. I was sharing
We're
with
safer than we ever thought we were. Our body's still reacting from a place of not being able to protect ourselves, which is why that reaction existed.
right.
Is we needed our bodies to take care of ourselves because we weren't developed enough
It's true.
to do a good job taking care of ourselves. But
So true.
if we never recognize that we're taller, we're bigger, we've got more resources, we can make friends, we can, solve all sorts of problems, then we can start to break out of that habitual reaction that the world
So
is
true.
a place.
Right. It's so true. And not being as reactive, I will tell you, has been amazing, because you can actually see things in a clearer way when we're not reactive. Like, I see things so differently now that I can just sit there and observe. And I remember Deepak Chopra saying, as he taught me to meditate, be the observer of your life, because then you can observe it and go, like, my new word right now is interesting. I'm like, well, that's interesting. And I don't know where that started, but
I
uh,
say it a lot,
it
actually.
really puts me in a place of neutrality. It
Hmm.
just puts me in this place of observation going, well, that's interesting because it gives me that pause, which is a boundary, right? The pause holds the space for me to actually drop in and actually feel what's true for me.
Yes. Good way of expressing it.
Yeah. And so when you can do that, because we usually have ignored, not intentionally, but we've ignored what's true for us for so long that we don't even really know what it is for us, like really in our hearts. Like I remember when it was like, well, what does your heart want? You know, my boyfriend will ask me that all the time. It's like, well, Julie's heart matters too. What does Julie want right now? And often I'm so used to making sure everyone else's hearts are really being heard and taken into account that I literally roll over my own. And I haven't really ever, and I've also realized how much my people pleaser has made it. Um, I've done what the other person wants to do because then it creates less conflict for me. So then I don't have to, you know, it's interesting. Like I have going into relationships. So I have a sister who's getting married. And uh it's funny, like I really have wrestled with, we have a history of just not coming from the same place. There's no good or bad. It's just that we're very different, just very different. And and I get this text message saying, okay, you guys just got to get a dress, purple or yellow, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, can I ask what I'm getting a dress for? Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, if you want to still be a bridesmaid in my wedding. And I was like, I was never asked to be a bridesmaid. And she's like, well, we'd still like you to be. And I was like, okay. And then I wrestled with that after the next couple days because I'm going, all right, well, mom's expectation is that everybody shows up the way you are supposed to show up for the other people, right? Not necessarily for yourself. And I'm like, I really have spent time in contemplation about like, do I want that? Just because somebody asks you doesn't necessarily, like, I think she's doing it out of obligation because I'm her sister, but yet she moved to a different state 3 years ago and I haven't really talked to her since.
Well, it kind of affects the ceremony and the ritual, doesn't it? If there's unspoken things going on, the ritual doesn't have as much power as it could because there's still a little bit of divisiveness.
Well, so here's what's interesting. So because I didn't react and I just said, okay, like just stayed in that neutrality, kind of going, all right, why is it coming out this way? Why is it like producing in this manner? And, you know, as opposed to like, you didn't ask me, because how many people get their panties in a bunch about something like that? Right. Certainly in our 20s, we tend to do that more than when you're in your 40s. But I sat with there and I'm going, oh, this is my test to show up in just unconditional love. And that's where my work on it is. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do this. And
Good.
because then I could actually drop into my own heart to find out that, oh yeah, I do want to show up this way
Yeah,
in relationship.
exactly. And when you show up that way, now the ceremony is made stronger.
Right. As opposed to in a place of, you know, because it's really interesting. It's fascinating to me because um my mom's not doing very well and she may not be on this earthly plane much longer. And I got really clear in one of my meditations that this wedding in July is very symbolic. Like, mom's greatest gift is her level of unconditional love that she gives. Like, she stays in that state of neutrality like I've never met. That's why she has 12 kids.
It's her temperament. I mean,
It's
my
just who
mom,
she is.
yeah,
Right.
my mom has that temperament too. It's just stunning.
And her gift is the unconditional love because we didn't have much money growing up. We didn't have any of these things, but we felt like we had everything. And this is where that unconditional love, that's that peace. And I almost feel like this wedding is going to be like the pinnacle of that for all of us, especially after the last year and a half that's gone on in the world. You know, it's fascinating to me to now have enough emotional space, be out of my traumas, and sit there and say, oh, I can observe and give myself the space and hold the boundaries that are true for me to then get to this other place. It's
Smart.
fascinating to me.
Isn't it nice? Doesn't
Mm,
it feel good
totally. It
to sort
absolutely
of
does.
get what you need?
Hmm. And I will tell you, and I actually physically said this to my ex-husband the other day. I said, well, dude, our souls signed up to provoke the shit out of each other so that we could then be the highest and best versions of who we're supposed to be on a soul level.
Nicely
You know
said.
what? And I said, and I am grateful that you have provoked the shit out of me because I am turning into the most amazing human being because you've played the role that you've played with me. And I want to thank you for that. And he was like,
You remember what I remember.
I don't know.
Oh my God. That was hilarious. And you aren't the first person. This literally happens to everyone. I've done so much work on myself. And when I work with people, I try to tell them, I'm like, this thing that pisses you off more than anything else, one of these days soon, you're going to see it as a gift.
Yeah.
You're going to see it as an opportunity and you'll be grateful for it. And to a woman, every single one, reacts the way that they do in disbelief, either outright
Because you're
sarcasm.
like, really?
Yeah. Either outright sarcasm or polite, disdain
Yeah.
that I'm Looney Tunes. I'm like, no, you will get to that point. You'll be grateful for it.
Well, and then I just reinforced to him, I said, it is never my intention to take your children away from you. It is never my intention to not have their dad a part of their lives. I said, but I have to be respected and honored as their mom just as much as you need to be honored and respected as their dad. And that there's no right or wrong. That was the word I probably should have left out. I went too far.
You were doing the spell and you messed the spell up.
Yeah, but you know what? It was actually a beautiful conversation because then I said, you know what? We're in a really great space. Why don't we end this conversation and we'll
Good.
reconvene in the next week or two? I said, I am so grateful for this. It was 20 minutes that we were on the telephone. It was beautiful.
Good, good, good. The
It
healing
was
is
beautiful.
happening.
So it was like, okay, things are starting to crack open. Things are starting to crack open,
So the
So,
next thing I want you to be thinking of is I know you've had some clear images about what's going to be happening, over the next few months in your life. I want you to start planning and looking for beyond that
mhm.
so that you can start planting in the field the resurrection or the healing that will happen after the fact or the how it creates more intimacy and brings everyone together. If you
Right.
can now hold
Yeah,
that
like we don't know how it's
yeah.
going to come together,
Mm-hmm.
but it will come into being and come together.
Right. And you want something that looks really good, like a picture of all of you at your kid's graduation, or like this.
Everybody happy, right?
Yes, together, happy, fulfilled, supportive, generous, kind, the best versions of each of you. And so start planting that into the field and it will pull you through
Yeah.
the next 4 months.
Yep. Got it. I totally get it. I totally get it. And I see that because I'll go back to, when the first time he came into my home after our divorce, it was Mary Kate's birthday a year ago. She was turning 7. I said, Mary Kate, what do you want for your birthday, honey? She goes, the only thing I want is mom sitting on one side and dad on the other singing happy birthday to me in the same room. And I was like, at that moment in time, I was not in a space ready for that. But I go, okay, because I knew in my meditations, I was planting the seeds of exactly what you were talking about, going, I want the highest and best for me, him, and my children. And I had no idea what package that was going to show up in.
So how are you different between then and today?
There's been enough forms of evidence of safety for me on an emotional and a physical level to actually be in his physical presence, because there's been enough incidences and space, right? Um, yeah, there's been enough to actually allow that to happen in a state of neutrality. Like there's no inside triggers anymore. Like if there's acting out that happens, whether it's the kids or him, I'm usually just in a state of neutrality, and I can see it of whatever is going to unpack, and it's like, okay, got it.
So what I've discovered is, we get planted in our subconscious all sorts of messages. And I
Hmm.
thought back, even in the womb, if our mother felt like she couldn't get what she needed and she couldn't trust people and her needs wouldn't get met, that contraction, that reaction
Yep.
to asking for help
Yeah,
would
that's
pass
certainly,
down.
you don't even know this story, and you saying this, I think it's important for me to share. So when my mother was pregnant with me, she had just had a miscarriage. Her second child was a miscarriage in her mind. So then she has me, and she started at like 6 months bleeding. And so they hospitalized her at 7 months until she gave birth to me at 9 months. So talk about all this fear that she had, right? She had all this fear built up in her system, that while a third of the pregnancy with me, not only, I bet it was, she was early on, I could see that she was afraid that she was going to lose another baby. And then it turned into bleeding, and whatever. And then, and then she will say today, going, that I was a very demanding child, that I was very, because I just was a go getter and she's a calm school teacher, and I'm like moving and shaking, right? And so here she wound up with someone who so it's interesting that you're saying that, because that absolutely has been wired into me, that fear of asking for help, right? That's absolutely been the case. So
And there's a lot of science that backs up of, when we're fetus, we are part of our mother's, whole system.
right, you
And
take it on.
we not only take it on, but we take on somebody else's problem,
Right.
because we might not have that temperament. That
Mhm.
might not be our genetic setup. And
Right.
then we're having someone else's experience being imprinted on us, and it can create a lot of confusion.
Totally.
I sat there thinking, I spent 9 months with a mother, and my mother was, super, she was a chill woman, so she was pretty cool. So I spent 9 months in this chill environment and then got kicked out into, my dad and his energy
Mhm.
and his chaotic energy. I mean, what a shock
So true.
to have this beautiful womb and then to be kicked out into this reality as an energetic being who freaks out, because she's
Right.
hypersensitive. Those things, they stick with us, and we have to take them into account, that we're carrying a lot of other people's baggage, and we
Yeah,
do not judge it and let it down just as quickly as we can.
that is so true. Well, it's all about healthy boundaries, ladies and gents. I mean, it really is, no matter whether it's in your financial world, in not allowing, debts to be a runaway train for you, or other people's spending to be your responsibility, or um, not holding healthy boundaries for yourself with your employer to get the pay raises that you deserve, to put more in your buckets to save. Like that's all boundary holding on the financial front. And it translates right into relationships. It translates right into holding boundaries for like what you're okay with and not okay with in relationship, and that don't respond from a place of fear that maybe I'm going to be alone, maybe I'm going to be by myself, maybe I'm repeating the pattern and I don't want to. And it's like, just choose to show up differently.
I've been
Yeah.
working with these families, adults, professional adults, as well as families, for who have ADD.
Mm,
And so either they're genius creative adults that didn't have enough trauma to really derail them so that they could focus it enough to be geniuses, or families with like 16-year-old, kids who, they just got through divorce and all that other stuff, and they don't talk to anybody. They close themselves off in their room. And I'm being able to help people who have been judged for their super creative neural diversity, which is what ADD and ADHD brings.
Which I believe if you have ADD and ADHD, you make the best entrepreneurs ever.
And you're a genius. Instead of
Right.
having the thoughts scatter all over the field, you learn how to rein yourself in and direct your thoughts and get clarity. So, I mean, they go like rocket ships because they're so smart. If you can get them pointed in the right direction,
Right.
it's just so helping people learn how to physically manage their own emotions and let this stuff go, and then plant in their brain the right triggers,
Right.
the positive triggers, like the one you're going to do about 10 years from now when you're at everybody's wedding. It's a positive trigger that you use ceremony and ritual to push deeper into your brain so that you can forget about it, and then you're on automatic pilot. You just automatically
let's talk about that a little bit deeper if we could, because there is a piece of me inside. I just heard you say that, and I'm conscious enough, and there's a piece of me that's like, is it just better if he's just not there? And it's my ex, like at the wedding, like it has been such a struggle that it's funny how my brain goes to that, but yet my heart would love for my kids to be completely whole with two parents that brought them into the world and they are happy as shit in their own individual lives. So then the children are made whole as well.
Yes.
It's like, but there's this inside, like, I'll call it angel and devil.
Yeah. But you're healing it right now, because as soon as you shine a flashlight, as soon as you shine a light on the issue, it resolves itself.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons we have these conversations, is because when we can go deeper into a problem, then it can be brought into the light, and it gets resolved as soon as it's brought into the light. So just the awareness.
That is so true. I want people to really, truly understand that. All you have to do is shine the light on it, and it dissipates its power over you.
That's why people who challenge us or are difficult for us, they're shining lights, and they're willing to shine lights on the parts of us that we've been protecting, that are disenfranchised from us, that we cut off. And so the meanest, nastiest people are the ones that shine a light into our own humanity so that we can become whole. And if we can keep that level of understanding while you're still living the human drama, because over the next few months, it's not going to be easy to have all of your children made whole and everybody's, you have got to let go, and it's going to be painful. But you have to have that higher vision planted in your brain, so that it gives you the strength and the resourcefulness to navigate through those white waters, until it gets calm and easy to navigate.
And it's super important too, you have this past and you have this history, to not even think about it, activate it, or do anything about it, because those are just old stories and old tapes. And really all we have is the present moment. And so being in present moment, because if you bring all this stuff, because not one human being I know of shows up 100% all the time the way that's the highest and best for everybody involved. Nobody does.
We're human beings, and we're supposed to be human beings. How do we have compassion if we don't understand pain?
Precisely. So I would encourage those of you who are watching to really just let that past be in its own little bubble, and don't pierce the bubble. Like, let it just be what it is, because the more I can take things at face value for today and not even trigger into the other place, and part of that conversation I had the other day with my ex was, yep, you're right. I was absolutely reactive. And you know what? I've been working on my reactivity, and now I'm past the place of reactivity, but also know that it's always my intention that it's the highest and best for all of us. even if we get stuck in our reactivity.
Well, here's the thing. Let's say we're perfect and we live in a cave and we're always wonderful. We really aren't of much service to other people. We are on a high spiritual level.
So true.
So what needs to happen is you let go of your body's natural evolution. Your body's evolving at the pace it can evolve, and you give it a blessing and you be okay with it. So sometimes there's knockdown, drag out fights, but there's a thought in the back of your head that says, wow, this is really interesting. Like you said, this is really interesting. I wonder how this is going to turn out. And you just keep doing the things that you need to do for yourself with just a little bit of objectivity. You still feel it. You're
Right.
not numb to it. It just doesn't cause as much pain. It's the difference between being on waves in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and being on waves in the lazy river at your local health club with an outdoor pool.
Right.
They're waves.
Right.
One is treacherous and dangerous, and the other one is a hell of a lot of fun that you have with a margarita. So, but it's still a wave. It's still this movement and activity. You just get the ability to dial it down so that it's fun instead of having it be traumatic and treacherous.
Totally true.
And if you try to do it by yourself, you're going to think you're crazy and everybody's going to tell you that you're selfish, and you're going to tell yourself that you're selfish.
Right.
You start getting community, then you'll realize that this is the path women have always needed to go for themselves, and that you're just taking the right next step for the evolution of yourself and everybody else.
So true. Makes sense. So Rita, how do people find you to be able to do some work with you?
They can find me at ritahickmancoaching.com. My shtick is that I work with women's narcissism recovery. But as I said, I've been working a lot with ADD lately, and with taking that genius and helping families deal with those crises of divorce, of child struggling with trauma, all of that. So just reach out to me at ritahickmancoaching.com and just send me a message and we'll figure it out. Or you can look me up on Facebook. I'm all over the place. In fact, we're doing the 7-day challenge this week. So I directed everybody to this video live stream this week. And we're always doing activities. We do group work with women. I do one-on-one coaching with people. And or you can come on this with Julie and me, and we'll give you, our geniuses. And we're very good. We'll help you with relationships. We'll help you look at things differently. So come on and be a part of this lazy river, at your health club.
It's beautiful. And I've included the link below if you want some help on your journey to my book funnel. I'm giving my book away for free. And all you have to do is click the link. And then if you decide, there's also a workbook in there and a course to wake up to your wealth, because it is time for us all to stop acting it out through our relationships or our money.
Right.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
See you later, Julie. Thanks. Bye.